Okay, we can start.
Okay, welcome everyone. We'll call this meeting to order at 6:01. Look for a motion to accept the agenda as presented. Moved by Murray, second by Dean. All in favor? That's carried. We'll put the minutes on the floor of the April 29th, 2021 Committee of Adjustment meeting.
I can move that.
Moved by Nicholas. Seconder, Murray. Any discussion on the minutes? I had a question. Are you still with us, Bob?
Yes.
Okay. A question on those minutes. I know when we did the one on line 44 that it was clear that the wall was in, but I've heard since that it also was started without a permit. I know it's after the fact, but I'm just asking if this is right and if it happens again, if the committee should be aware of those issues.
The applicant moved ahead without permission. He's going to have to pay the overage on the or the penalty fee on the building based on the building permit. He was still within the appeal period and had no regard to that. Notice was given to him.
Okay. Yeah, because like my feeling is that we do these things and it might be an oversight on where the property lines are located or whatever, how the building gets where it is. But if it's blatant like that, then I don't feel like we should be rewarding these people for putting someplace in the wrong place where it's not even under permit yet. So
That's a decision the committee should deal with. Yes.
okay. Should we be made aware of that, or where's the, like, how would we, if you know when these minutes go out, Bob, or should it be a planner's report, or how would we know? I only heard that after the fact.
With the notice of decision, the appeal period is identified in that decision, and it goes out directly to the applicant. So he, in my understanding, he was fully aware of that condition.
Okay. Sorry, Dean, you had a question?
Well, I guess to your point, Mike, I noted like that the subject property's not too far from where I live, and I noted that it was the Thursday I went into town, and I happened to look from Highway 23. I happened to look east, and I saw framing going up at that property, and that was the next day after our meeting. So just as a point of information and future reference, yeah, as required.
Right. Thank you. Planner David?
Yeah, Chair Tam, just to chime in on that, I think in future we could certainly make note of those matters in our planning report. I think that detail was absent in our report, but we could certainly, for any future cases like that, similar type of situation, we could certainly make note of it so the committees has a full awareness of the background on the permit side if you know somebody falls into that type of situation.
Okay. Thanks very much. Yeah, I didn't want to hold this up, but I just wanted to bring that up because that's been brought to my attention. So just thought we should mention that. If there's nothing else, we'll call the vote on the minutes of the April 29th meeting. All in favor? Okay, that's carried. All right, any declaration of pecuniary interest? Nothing noted. We'll now call on the Secretary Treasurer to tell us the purpose of this meeting.
The purpose of this public meeting of the West Perth Committee of Adjustment is to allow the presentations of applications for minor variances and to allow interested members of the public the opportunity to ask questions or offer comments with regard to these applications. Written comments must be submitted to the Secretary Treasurer of the committee. Any member of the public that would like to be notified in writing of the Committee of Adjustments decision on the application are to provide their name and mailing address to the Deputy Clerk. This will also entitle you to be advised of a possible local planning appeal tribunal hearing in the event the decision on this application is appealed. Notices were sent by regular mail on May 17, 2021 to property owners within 60 meters of both subject properties and to agencies requiring notice.
Thank you. Okay, the first application is a meeting to consider an application for a minor variance for lands owned by Dan Dale and Mark Van Pelt, described as part lot of 15, concession 1, Hibbert Ward, municipality of West Perth, also known as 3909 Perth Road 180, Dublin. But now we request planner David Gundrum to present his report.
Okay, thank you, Chair Tam. Chair, members of the committee. As noted, this application for minor variance is within the village of Dublin in the Hibbert Ward of West Perth. The applicant or the owners in this case have applied for minor variance seeking relief in order to erect and establish a new accessory structure, being a garage, that would be accessory to an existing single detached dwelling on the subject property. I'm just going to quickly screen share just to illustrate some images of the site for the committee. So can everybody see that okay?
Yes, we can.
Great. So essentially what the owners are seeking to do is create a new garage structure in the southern side yard, or sorry, in the southern portion of the rear yard of the property. I'll just flip down to the images that they've provided on their application drawings. This is an elevation drawing illustrating the height of the proposed structure. So one aspect of the relief that they're asking for is to be permitted to build up to a height of 5.89 meters or 19 and a third feet, whereas the zoning bylaw only permits a maximum build height of an accessory structure in the Hamlet Village residential zone of 4.5 meters. And this would be measured from the finished grade level of the building to the mean height between the eaves and the ridge of the roof line. The other aspect of this variance is to seek relief for lot coverage. So this is a top-down view provided on a sketch by the owners, showing the existing house shown here to the west of the property, and the proposed garage to the east in the rear yard. The zoning bylaw in this case only permits a maximum lot coverage of 5% for an accessory structure, which translates to 268.25 square meters. The applicants are requesting an increase to that maximum lot coverage for the accessory structure up to 297 square meters, which would be approximately 5.5% of total lot coverage. In examining the application for minor variance, staff have found that it does meet all 4 tests of minor variance, that it maintains the intent and purpose of the County of Perth official plan. It also maintains the intent and purpose of the local zoning bylaw. Potential locations for the establishment of the garage are limited to only the rear yard or interior side yard areas as per section 5 of the zoning bylaw. The applicants have proposed to place the accessory structure within the rear yard, and in placement at this location would ensure that the primary use remains visually dominant to the streetscape in this respect. I will note that the position of the garage, as noted on the drawing, would ensure an enhanced front yard setback of approximately 64 meters, whereas the bylaw requires a minimum of 7.5 meters. With regard to the lot coverage aspect, the bylaw permits a maximum lot coverage of 30% for dwellings and as noted, a 5% coverage for accessory buildings and structures. The built area of the dwelling in this case is approximately 4.2% of lot coverage, which is well below the upper limit of 30% for the lot. So if you were to add up the coverage of both the dwelling and the accessory garage together and calculate a percentage according to the total lot area, you'd be less than 10% of lot area coverage. With respect to the building height, although the applicants are asking for an increase of approximately 4.5 feet over maximum, I will note in the site photos that were taken several weeks ago that the position of the garage on the property is on a point of land to the rear of the dwelling that would be lower slung than the position of the dwelling. So even though there would be a markedly higher height for this garage versus a dwelling, its position to the rear on a lower point of land should ensure that the respective heights of the two roofs are similar to each other, and the garage doesn't predominate with respect to the house and the streetscape. So in summary, we are recommending approval of this application for minor variance subject to the two conditions as listed in our report. We've only received one piece of correspondence to date in response to our circulation, which was received from the Osable Bayfield Conservation Authority, citing that they had no concerns with the proposed minor variance and that the the property rather is not within the regulated area. So again, we are recommending approval subject to the conditions in our report, and I'd be happy to answer any questions members may have. Thank you.
Thanks, David. All right, we'll now hear from the applicant or agent. Is there anyone with us to comment on this?
Yes, we have an applicant here.
Okay. I see Dan and
There we
Mark
go.
on the screen.
Can
There we go.
Can you see us there?
Yep. Hi,
Can you
Dan.
see us? Yay. Hey, how are you?
Good, good. Go ahead there, Dan.
I don't think I have any questions. I think David, he pretty much summed everything up there about the elevation drop there in the backyard, how it's going to make the shop look the same as the house. So the shed anyways. So I don't know. I don't know what questions I have.
Okay.
Do you
Yeah,
have questions?
Anybody have questions? That's our third point here, Dan. So we'll just stay on the line with us here.
Okay.
The second one is to hear from members of the public. Is there anyone with us from the public, Ludwika?
We don't have anybody from the public.
No? Okay. I guess now we're on to comments or questions from committee members. Anything? Nothing? Okay.
Nope.
Thanks, Dan. We'll bring this discussion to a close then. And we have a motion before us that the municipality of West Perth Committee of Adjustment approve minor variance D13-03-21 submitted by Dan Deal and Mark Van Pelt, affecting lands described as Part Lot 15, Concession 1, Hibbert Ward, Municipality of West Perth, also known as 3909, Perth Road 180, and that the committee hereby grants the following variance to zoning bylaw 100-1998. And then I think everyone has the conditions, has read them all. So,
I can move that, Mike.
okay, moved by Nicholas, second by Cheryl. All in favor? That's carried. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, so we can go off now?
No.
I don't know how either.
All right. Are we okay to start the second application, Labika?
We are okay, if you are okay.
Okay, I'm ready. Second application this meeting is to consider an application for a minor variance for lands owned by Jeff and Emily Van Miltenberg on behalf of Bernard and Rosemary Van Miltenberg, described as the east half of Lot 27, Concession 9, Hibbert Ward, Municipality of West Perth, 7451, Perth Line 24. I'd now request Planner David Gundrum to present his report.
Thank you, Chair Tam. Chair and members of the committee, I'm just going to share a screen here as I go along, just to illustrate some images regarding the application. So this application for minor variance is with respect to establishment of a proposed new dairy barn and a manure storage structure on the subject property that's highlighted in blue here. So this property is located at 7451 Perth Line 24. It's on the south side of Perth Line 24, several kilometers west of Staffa in the Hibbert Ward. So the owners are proposing, as I mentioned, to establish a new dairy barn and manure storage on the site. And the next image shows the proposed positioning of that dairy barn with manure storage located to the west of the barn. And the applicants are asking, in order to get a building permit to do this, they're seeking relief from the MDS2 setbacks for the barn and the manure storage structure. So based on the calculations that the owners provided to us and the head count of cattle that would be in the livestock facility, the variance would be seeking to reduce the required setback for the barn from a dwelling located to the northwest on an adjacent property shown here on the sketch. So the proposed reduction for the barn would be down to 130 meters from the required 193 meters. So that would be a reduction of 63 meters or 207 feet. With respect to the manure storage, the MDS requires a setback of 274 meters or 899 feet approximately from the neighboring dwelling. So the proposal is in order to accommodate the proposed positioning of that manure storage, would reduce that number from 274 meters down to 129 meters or 423 feet approximately. So that represents a difference of 145 meters or 475 feet from what is otherwise required by the MDS. The subject property is within the agricultural zone as well as the natural resources environment zone 2 of the West Perth zoning bylaw. The agricultural zone does permit establishment of livestock facilities, including manure storage structures, subject to compliance with the MDS. In review of the application with respect to the 4 tests of minor variance, the County of Perth official plan under section 5 states that variances to MDS 2 distances may be approved provided that they are minor in nature, no unacceptable adverse impacts, and that provided that the proposal mitigates an environmental impact associated with the farming operation. And that language, I will note for committee, flows through from the OMAFRA MDS document published by the province. We have found that the proposed location and placement of the dairy barn and the manure storage are not being compelled by an intention that is required to mitigate an environmental impact associated with the farm. Examples of this would be unstable slopes or floodplain hazards or other natural hazards. And we have found that the variance therefore does not maintain the general intent and purpose of the County of Perth official plan. Similarly, the West Perth zoning bylaw also requires that all livestock facilities and manure storage structures comply with the MDS document. Again, the MDS document states in similar kind to the County of Perth official plan that these reductions should be limited to site-specific circumstances that mitigate environmental or public health and safety impacts or that avoid natural or human-made hazards. As the proposed variance does not concern mitigation of any of these, it cannot be said to meet the general intent and purpose of the local zoning bylaw, and we have stated as such in our evaluation. In terms of the 3rd test, whether the variance is desirable or appropriate for the development or use of the subject property, while a dairy barn and manure storage are certainly appropriate uses for this type of property and would otherwise be, permitted and desirable and appropriate to enhancing the agricultural use and capability of this property, the scale of the reduction in the setback for MDS cannot be considered appropriate due to the potential impact that could be generated upon the dwelling located to the northwest. And lastly, the test as to whether the variance can be considered minor in nature. As noted before, the applicants are suggesting a reduction of 63 meters or over 200 feet setback for the barn and 145 meter or approximate 475 foot reduction in the setback for the manure storage given the proposed locations of these structures. Given the magnitude of these reductions and the potential impact that such reductions could have on the existing residential use to the northwest, the proposed variance cannot be considered as minor in nature. Staff are therefore recommending to West Perth Committee of Adjustment that this application be denied on the basis of our evaluation. To date, we have only received one piece of correspondence in response to our circulation, and that was from the Osabo Bayfield Conservation Authority. The CA reviewed the application, had no concern with it, and stated that the proposed structures are not within their regulation limit. So that is summary of our report, recommendation, and comments received to date. I'll stop screen sharing at this point and turn it back over to the chair.
Okay, thank you, David. We'll now provide an opportunity for questions or comments from the applicant or the agent. Anyone with us, Labika?
Yes, we are having an applicant and the agent.
Okay. Hi, Katie.
Hi, hello committee chair. And I am the agent for the applicants, and the Van Miltenberg are in attendance as well. But what I'll do is I'll speak first, and then if Jeff or Emily want to chime in, they can certainly do so. So as David has gone over, the project is a new dairy barn and manure pit. The Van Miltenbergs are set to receive a quota allocation in August of this year, so August 2021, and there's some urgency for them to get a new barn built, otherwise they won't be able to receive this quota allocation. So this proposed project is one that is a requirement for the farm operation to expand. Without the barn, then that's going to have a big impact on the family's ability to expand their farming operation. The location being proposed itself, the reason that it's being proposed where you saw it and what David shared on the screen and what's in the report package is that to move the barn back would be cost prohibitive as far as getting the servicing there. And of course, the other issue would be more lost prime agricultural land as far as what would be taken up in the servicing that would be required to move to a distance farther back on the property. So as David spoke to, certainly the committee has to consider the test that's set out in the Planning Act when considering any sort of reduction of the MDS setback. And our submission is that the proposal before you does meet the test. I'll comment before I go through the test from the applicant's perspective that while the MDS setbacks are the recommended setbacks, the test does allow for reductions of them when it's appropriate to do so. So my submission is that the committee should be looking at this from the perspective of MDS setbacks can be reduced when it's appropriate to do so, and that's why there is a test that the committee gives the committee the discretion. And one thing I'll point to as well is there was a case released by the local planning appeal tribunal just recently, February 11th, 2021 is when the decision came out. And that is the Logan case. And it's very interesting because in that case, when we get to that fourth part of the test, is this minor in nature? In that case, the LPAT approved MDS setback reduction of 331 meters to 165 meters. So that was a 50% reduction. And it was approved by LPAT, who found that it was minor in nature. And what that stands as is a precedent that it's not always about the numbers, because when you look at 50%, 53%, that's a big number. But this test really is applied in a contextual way, looking at what's happening on the ground. So the first branch of the test, of course, is, as David spoke to, so variance maintaining the general intent and purpose of the OPA. Our submission is that agricultural and related activities contribute greatly to the economy of the municipality. And certainly section 5.2 of the OP, it's a goal of the official plan to support agricultural producers in growing their operations and growing their operations in a market wherein obtaining new land to build a barn is very difficult right now. So what we're looking at, again, speaking of that contextuality in which the text needs to be applied, we're looking at a situation in our municipality where farmers wanting to expand livestock operations, there isn't necessarily a lot of opportunity for them to buy land to do that on. And that's the case with this family. So they're looking at expanding their operation and they need to do it on the land they've got. So our submission is this reduction would be consistent with the official plan goals of supporting this agricultural producer in expanding the family farm operation. Moving to the second branch, so the variance would maintain the general intent and purpose of the zoning bylaw. So as David pointed out, the area of the property that we're looking at is zoned agricultural and permits various uses as a right, including agricultural uses, and this fits squarely within those uses. The proposed location of the barn complies with all other regulations of the zoning bylaw. And it's keeping in the intent of the zoning bylaw while providing an appropriate MDS setback is our position. And one of the things that I'll speak to there is the house that is at issue, the house where we're calculating that MDS setback from, is on a property also owned by the family. So when we're talking about the MDS setbacks, what we're talking about is land use conflict. And there is very little chance from a practical standpoint of there being a land use conflict if the requested reduced setback is approved. My apologies, I've got something dinging here. I've got so many devices linked these days. So again, when we're looking at the intent of the zoning bylaw, there still is going to be significant distance from the house. The house we're talking about is owned by the same family. There's no intention of that farm being sold out of the family. The next stage of the test, desirable for the appropriate development or use of the subject property. Again, to my previous point, odor generation is not an issue in this case because we're talking about the house is being owned by the same family. So we've got low possibility of future land conflicts. There is always the possibility that, sure, the neighboring farm could be sold to a third party. And the committee could include a requirement that a caution be registered on title. What I would also say is, going back to the Logan decision that I referred to earlier, the LPAT, the tribunal, made some interesting comments about how in an area dominated by agricultural uses, looking at that, when someone comes into that area and wants to move into a house in that area, and they're looking around and seeing the agricultural uses, that is part of living in an agricultural community. And certainly the MDS setbacks are in place because there is always that tension. But what we're talking about here is if the farm were to be sold and someone move into that house, there's certainly things that could be put in place so that they're aware, if they're not aware just by looking at it, but they're made aware by a registration on title that there could be some odor. And then lastly, the variance being minor in nature, that last leg of the test. So we have consistent precedent from LPAT that rural areas should support rural land uses. And the healthy and viable agricultural industry is a cornerstone of our municipal economy. And so when you look at that context, again, bringing in that the chance of a land conflict is slim with the actual practicality of what's happening on the ground here. And then we do have precedent for these sorts of 50% reductions in MDS facts that have been approved by LPAT. Putting all those factors together, it's our submission that the variance is minor in nature. So I'm happy to turn it over to my client. I can see they're on there. I don't know if they've got, I don't see them on the screen, but if they have anything to add, and then certainly to answer any questions that the committee may have.
right?
Am I on?
Yep.
Oh, there.
I'm on. Yeah, thank you, Katie. You did an excellent job there. Yeah, I just pretty much want to say the quota being allocated is a great opportunity for me and my family, and it's I would like the barn where it is because it's not as feasible, you know. If I yeah, and for animal health, like I want to be close to my barn, if you understand. I don't know. Can they hear? Okay. And yeah, and I own the house. So yeah, thank you.
Okay. Thank you. Any other anything else from the applicant or agent? If not, we'll move on to any members of the public joining us, Lubika.
We don't have any members of the public present.
Okay, we'll now turn it over to committee members for comments or questions. Anything? Dean?
I think the agent for the applicant made a pretty compelling presentation. I would also mention that we had a case, similar case last year. I believe it was the Schoonerwood application for a hog barn. And in that, it was similar in that they were requesting relief from the MDS separation requirements. And in that case, the neighbor actually agreed to the changes and was willing to sign a waiver to sign a waiver to relieve or to trying to think the right word. They weren't going to complain about any odor nuisance or anything like that. And they were prepared to sign a document to that effect to assist in the application. But in this case, it's the applicant is indeed the owner of the adjoining property. So I think the agent for the applicants made their case very well here. If this was proposed against a new subdivision or a built-up area, then I'd have a different. I'd be concerned, but I don't see any concerns with this application.
Okay, Cheryl.
Yeah, I was just going to comment something similar. I don't, as I said, that it was the Schoonerwood one last year that we did. And I'm just looking around the area. I know of I'm not sure what size the herd of this quota is, but I know there's over 1,000 head of herd just outside the municipality of Woodham, and it's continuing to grow. And there's more barns being built there now, and it's a lot closer to those residential area, and it's probably 3 or 4 times the size of this quota that your Van Belton birds are planning on putting in. So I feel that this is an ideal situation for them.
Okay, anyone else from the committee? Nicholas?
Through you, Chair Tam. I was wondering, David, are there any these 2 residences to the north of Perth Line 24? Would they fall in this MDS 2 range that the dairy barn and manure storage would be needing?
Through the chair, Councillor Vink, we evaluated, we took a look at those based on their positioning, and they wouldn't fall within the range of influence or the required setback for the barn. So really, it's just the one dwelling of concern here that's to the northwest on the neighboring property.
Okay. David, I guess, so it would be 423 feet. Is that what it would have to move back to make it comply?
Chair Tam, what I have here, that is correct. It'd be 423 feet or 129 meters is what the required setback for the manure storage would have to be. Or sorry, that's what's being requested as a position of the manure storage.
Okay. And just a follow-up question, if there's ever a surplus farmhouse severance application on something like this, that wouldn't be something that could be considered then?
Address that, Chair Tam. So just to clarify, you would mean a surplus farm severance on the subject property where the barn is to be located?
Yes, that's right.
So that, in that case, it's exempt from MDS, recognizing that a surplus farm dwelling is an established use. So it doesn't have to conform to MDS from any barns that are surrounding. So on neighboring properties. So if it's on the same property, then there is a concern in that case.
Okay, on the neighboring one's not. Okay. Okay, thank you. All right. Anything else from the committee? We have a motion and before us, and the motion is that the minor variance be denied. Is there anybody prepared to make a motion or move or second that one? Don't see any hands. Nicholas?
If I gauged the public interest around this subject property in rural Hibbert, that the zoning of agriculture, this is a good spot, I think, when I gauge public interest around our community for the barn to go, being that the applicant owns both farms. It would support their farming application, farming operation, and I don't see it intruding on that gauge of public interest that I look around the community and see a problem with it myself.
Okay. Do we have anybody prepared to make a motion? Nicholas?
I'll move the application be approved, that the minor variance application be approved.
David?
Sorry to interrupt, but just if I may, Deputy Clerk, we have prepared a draft motion of approval in the event that the committee did want to approve, so we can put that up to back up what member Vink has put forth. I'll just wanted to add that here.
I guess I would be most interested, if I may, Mike, what the conditions would be that we would have, recommend approval, and then if there are any conditions, David.
Yeah, through the chair, there would only be 2 recommended conditions. One would be, and if the deputy clerk could scroll down, they're up on the screen there. I believe the first was that the minor variance be consistent with the application drawing. Yeah, there are the conditions that the minor variance only applies to the proposed livestock facility and manure storage structure consistent with the application drawing. And number 2 is a standard condition that you see on all minor variances, that the owners obtain the building permit within 2 years of approval.
Yeah, I could move that if that's all right, Mike.
Okay, moved by Nicholas with those conditions. Do we have a seconder?
I can second that, Mike.
Okay, seconded by Cheryl. Discussion on the motion? Okay, my only question is, this quota is for August, and obviously the barn's not going to be done by then. So how does that work? I know that's not the matter at hand, but you just have to have it underway by then.
Hello?
Katie or Jeff?
Yeah, this is Jeff. I can purchase quota in June and July to be milking in August. And then there's a 2-month grace period. So I actually have till November.
Okay.
To start milking. And Van and Hoovel's tell me they can make that happen. So.
Okay. Okay. Yeah, I was just curious about the timeline.
Hi.
All right, we have, it's been duly moved and seconded. The motion to approve this minor variance, all in favor? All right, that's carried. Thanks, everyone.
You.
All right, I think that's everything. So the next motion is that West Perth Committee of Adjustment hereby closes this public hearing held pursuant to section 45 of the Planning Act at 6:41 p.m. Moved by Dean, second by Murray. All in favor? That's carried. And then I don't see it on my hearing guide here, but I guess the next one's motion to adjourn, Labika.
Yes,
Okay,
Yes. motion to adjourn.
motion to adjourn. Moved by Cheryl, second by Murray. All in favor? That's good. Oh, did you have a question or a comment, David?
No, I was going to mention to the committee that our next meeting date will be announced through email. We have a new application in right now, but we'll notify the members well ahead of time of the next date. It will be in June, but we haven't determined the exact date yet.
Okay, thanks, David. All right, I think that was moved by Cheryl and second by Murray.
Also, if I may interrupt, I just wanted to remind and mention that we will be sending the notices of decision to committee members. And if you can please keep an eye on your emails in the next couple of days, because we will be needing your confirmation.
Okay,
Okay.
all right, thanks. All in favor of motion to adjourn? All right, that's carried. Thanks, everyone. Have a good night.